The chamber grew quiet as Professor Vexenari announced the final exam. Students from across the galaxy shifted uneasily in their seats. The Zephyrian scales rippled with stress. The crystalline beings dimmed to a worried amber, and even the proud Vorthan warriors looked unsettled. Everyone except one, Thomas Wright, sat in the human's chair, calmly flipping through his datapad while eating a simple Earth snack. While others had been preparing for weeks, some for months, Dams had only arrived 3 days earlier and spent most of that time exploring the campus food courts. The mind maze, Professor Vexenari said, gesturing with all 6 arms, has been the ultimate test of mental strength for over 3 centuries. A psychic labyrinth that twists your deepest fears, your worst weaknesses, and your darkest anxieties. It is the pinnacle of psychological warfare training. Keith, a nervous superior nearby, leaned toward Thomas. Her translator turned the hiss of her speech into words. Human Thomas, are you not worried? The mind maze has scarred students permanently. The Vorthan Empire even uses a weaker version to break enemy spies. Thomas looked up from his datapad where he was solving a simple word puzzle. Oh, the fear maze thing. Yeah, sounds fun. Kind of like those escape rooms back on Earth, just mental instead of physical. A crystalline student named Prism added, their voice like wind through glass. This is not a game, Human Thomas. Last semester a Vorthan cadet left speaking only in numbers. The semester before, a Zahirian became convinced she was made of water. Thomas tilted his head, curious. So it's like a puzzle that messes with your head. That actually sounds cool. Professor Vexenari studied him closely, and for decades of teaching, she had seen fear, arrogance, determination, but never such casual indifference. Very well, she said. We shall begin with volunteers. Who will go first? The room stayed silent until Thomas raised his hand. I'll try. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Even Vexenari's antenna twitched in surprise. Human Thomas, she said carefully. Perhaps you should watch others first. Nah, I'm good. I just want to see how this thing works. Thomas stood, stretched, and asked, so, where do I plug in? Minutes later, he was lying in the neural interface chair, dampeners around his head. The massive display above showed his brain activity steady and calm, which made Professor Vexenari frown. Initiating mind maze sequence, she announced, beginning with standard fear protocols. The display shifted to show Thomas's perspective. A dark, endless corridor lined with doors. Most students would hear whispers, see shadows, and feel the crushing weight of fear. Thomas whistled. Nice graphics, pretty atmospheric. He walked to the first door and opened it without hesitation. Inside was a twisted version of his childhood home, filled with shadowy figures lurking in corners. Ah, the classic childhood trauma setup, he said, almost amused. Let me guess. Scared of the dark, monsters under the bed. Thomas walked right up to one of the shadow creatures. You know, you'd be scarier if you didn't stand in such obvious dramatic lighting. The monster flinched, clearly not expecting that. In the observation chamber, the students stared in disbelief. Kether's scales went flat. He's critiquing it. Thomas kept moving through the maze like he was solving a clever riddle. When it showed him his greatest fears, he calmly picked apart their psychological roots. When it tried to trap him in endless loops of anxiety, he spotted the logical flaws. When it attempted to crush him with existential dread, he just started humming. Here's the thing. Thomas explained to what looked like the embodiment of cosmic insignificance. Humans have been scaring ourselves for fun for thousands of years. Horror movies, haunted houses, ghost stories around campfires. We've basically turned fear into entertainment. He reached a junction with 3 branching paths. Now, if I designed this maze, that path would lead to social anxiety and imposter syndrome. The middle one, probably fear of failure with a childhood insecurity twist. He studied the faint cues in the environment. Let's try the middle one. Professor Vexenari's compound eyes widened. The readings showed something impossible. Thomas's stress levels were actually dropping. He wasn't suffering. He was enjoying himself. See, Thomas continued, psychological puzzles follow patterns. Once you figure out the designer's mindset, you can predict the outcome. Just like a crossword. Finally, he reached the last chamber. Normally, students faced their ultimate terror here and either triumphed or broke. But Thomas found something else, a massive library containing every book ever written. A voice thundered, infinite knowledge but finite time. Choose carefully. You may read only 1 book, and when you finish, you will forget everything else you've ever learned. Thomas grinned. Ah, the paradox of choice mixed with fear of intellectual loss. Clever. He grabbed the first book he saw. It's titled Gleaming. How to Remember Everything While Reading This Book. The students gasped. Did he just solve the unsolvable paradox? Prism whispered. The entire maze collapsed. Thomas opened his eyes in the chair, looking fresh and relaxed. That was fun. Does it have difficulty settings? Professor Vexenari stared at the data. Not only had Thomas finished in record time, but the maze's adaptive AI had stopped trying to frighten him. For the first time in history, the maze itself registered stress more than the human. How, she muttered. Thomas sat up and shrugged. I guess when you grow up solving crossword puzzles every Sunday, you realize every puzzle has rules. Once you learn the rules, it's just logic. Besides, Humans are weird about fear. We chase it, analyze it, and turn it into fun. Hard to be scared when you're too busy figuring it out. He gathered his things while the other students sat in stunned silence. The galaxy's most feared exam had just been treated like a weekend hobby by a human who seemed almost disappointed it wasn't harder. Professor Vexenari quietly updated her files. Recommend significant upgrades to Mind Maze difficulty before the next human enrollment. At the chamber door, Thomas paused. Hey, Professor. If you need help redesigning it, let me know. Debugging that maze, I know some people back on Earth who design escape rooms. They could probably make it a lot tougher. With that, Thomas strolled out in search of lunch, leaving behind a classroom full of students who would never see psychological warfare training the same way again.